Is there any objection? There is objection. Question number 7, Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Kia ora koutou.
Order. Jacinda Ardern.
Kia ora koutou te whare. My question is to the Minister of Housing and asks...
Order. The level of noise coming from towards the back of the House is unreasonable for Jacinda Ardern to ask her question. Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Housing and asks how many people, if any, are currently homeless in New Zealand?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, there is no precise current measure of homelessness, although the Housing New Zealand waiting list is a measure. The total number in the A and B categories is currently 3,811, actually 551 less than when the government took office. I might advise that 20% of the Category A's could be classed as homeless, or about 250. Housing New Zealand housed 200 people in June, or about 40 high-need families per day.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Supplementary to the Minister. Why is the definition of homelessness used by the Ministry of Statistics different to that used by Housing New Zealand, who don't, for instance, consider someone living in a night shelter to be homeless?
Well, Mr Speaker,
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
No change has been made, and inevitably there's some degree of arbitrariness in terms of Housing New Zealand's definition. If a person is living in a car, we could treat them as being homeless. If a person is living in tent or something that's quite clearly not a physical safe roof over their head, they are certainly considered as homeless. And I'd also remind the member that this government is spending over $2 billion in the accommodation supplement and in the income-related rent to support people with housing challenges, as well as over $2 billion, as well as $2.9 billion of capital over the next 3 years with Housing New Zealand, the biggest investment ever in the corporation.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Supplementary to the Minister. Will he ensure that his department includes in their definition of homelessness someone who uses a night shelter, which includes up to 850 people a night, or, for instance, someone who is forced to couch surf because of lack of shelter?
Mr Speaker,
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
We can get into some esoteric argument. Well,
Order.
A shelter, and Housing New Zealand provides funding for a number of organisations to provide, well, for the member, Mr Clostov, actually there's less homelessness now when you're a minister, mate.
Order, it would be helpful. Order. It would be helpful if the Labour front bench ceased from interjecting while the Minister attempts to answer the question.
There is not...
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor.
In fact, there are 2 points of order, sir. One, there used to be a rule in the House that when you got to your feet, the person who otherwise had the call sat down. That didn't occur. The reason I thought you were getting to the feet, sir, to your feet, was that the Minister indicated that things had changed since you were in government. Sir, they may have, but only a little.
With regards to the order, with regards to the first point of order, because I was looking at the Labour front bench, I didn't actually notice, but I accept that the Minister may not have sat down, which is not helpful. The reference to the Speaker occurs on occasions, and it is well known to all members of the House. Do not bring the Speaker into the debate. But I'm trying to attempt to get an answer for Jacinda Ardern, who has asked a reasonable question, but it is very difficult for the Minister to answer when he's continually responding to interjections which are coming from the front bench of the Labour front benches, which are interrupting the answer the Minister's given. Would the Minister now please answer the question?
A common sense definition that I take of homelessness is a person that does not have a roof over their head. We can put a whole lot of energy into arguing the definition, or we can do what this government is doing and get on and build the homes that New Zealanders need.
Order. Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Is he concerned that his department, or indeed himself as Minister, is grossly underestimating the scale of this issue? When based on an OIA we received from his department, Housing New Zealand have housed on average just 250 homeless people per year, when in the last year alone, just one service provider in one city had more than 200 brand new homeless clients walk through their doors, and had another had a further 130.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
In the last month of June, Housing New Zealand housed 200 people. The current waiting list for people for a house is less now than what members opposite were in government. We are investing records amounts in new housing. We've actually got the economy growing, and I'd also remind the member to have a look at the record of her member's government in terms of increase in housing costs, because it was an awful shame.
Supplementary question, Pasata Sam Lotu-Iiga.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. How much have housing costs risen over the past 5 years, and how does it compare with previous years?
Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, since 2008, house prices have increased by 16% or 3% per annum. Between 2000 and 2008, house prices increased by 105% or 105% or 10.5% per year, i.e. housing costs are going up at a third of what they did under the previous government.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Supplementary to the Minister. Does he have a strategy for this issue, given his own government has two different definitions for homelessness? His own now is a third and could include, for instance, someone living under a bridge as being housed. He doesn't know the scale of the issue. No one minister or department has responsibility for it, and the NGO sector is essentially being left to deal with growing demand.
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I take issue with the member claiming that when you say someone is homeless when they don't have a roof over their head, that somehow a bridge is a roof. That's a somewhat unique definition coming from the members opposite. In terms of does this government have a strategy, let me tell you about it. We are spending $2.9 billion over the next 3 years in building thousands of extra bedrooms on existing state houses. We're building 500 infill houses. In fact, Mr Speaker, over this financial year, the government will be directly building more houses than any government has in the history of New Zealand.
Question number 8, Dr Paul Hutchinson.
Tēnā koe.